I'm Wendy Capewell and the host of this podcast, which is all about relationships, the one with ourselves and the one with others. My guests and I will be sharing our experience and our views over the coming weeks. So, on with the show. I have a really lovely lady with me today, Sara Copley. She's a mental health and well-being consultant, and there's so much about Sara. She's got she had a very interesting life. She does so many things. She's so well qualified and helps lots of people. But I'm going to pass over to Sara so she can introduce herself. She'll do it so much better than I can.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Sara Copley. We'll tell in a few minutes I have a funny accent. I'm Irish, but went to live in America as a teenager and then moved back to Europe, and we've been sort of all over Europe and then Southeast Asia and now back to England again. What else can I say about myself? So I am a psychologist, a coach, a teacher, a mother. I've got two lovely kids, a wife, a daughter, a bit of a nomad. I love to travel around, and my absolute passion is mental health. And one of the big things I work with at the moment is helping people to befriend themselves. I think becoming your own best friend, having a strong relationship with yourself is one of your strongest assets.
Yeah, I love that because I often say to my clients, be your own best friend. Because if you, especially when they're questioning themselves, they might say, well, I don't know whether that's right or if I'm doing the right, thinking the right thing. Well, what would you say to your best friend if they...
Exactly, yeah.
And they say, well, I would say X, Y, and Z. I say, okay, be your own best friend.
Because usually we know.
Yeah, we do. We
know.
We are to ourselves, but yeah.
Yeah, I think for I've had almost 20 years of experience sort of dealing with these things. I mean, personally as well as professionally. Mm-hmm. And I found kind of a combination of techniques with people works. First of all, I'd say is a lot of people don't know their own core values and strengths. They don't know what the difference is. They don't know what they are. They don't know how to access them. And I'd say, on top of those sort of things, what I teach a lot is mindful meditation as part of the process. I'm practicing self-compassion. I mean, compassion is courage and wisdom. And I think there are some things that we don't necessarily practice or know enough about. And then I say, finally, the thing that we tend to bring into practice is learning how to honor your own needs. Learning that you have to be able to meet your own needs or figure out a way or get support to have those met. So they're the big things we tend to work with. Yeah.
A mindful meditation.
Yeah.
I did a course on mindfulness several years ago, and I found it so interesting and so helpful. And I'm probably not to the level that you've done it, but I find it really is just. So for me, mindfulness is you could take it anywhere in your life. You can take it into the fact of accepting yourself as you are and being mindful how, I don't know, just about being. One of the things is about the food we eat, where it comes from, and being really mindful and honouring even the clothes we wear.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, what we say is honoring your lived experience. Yes. So mindfulness to me, I mean, I teach in a formal sort of 8-week mindfulness and compassion course. And the big thing for us is teaching the mindfulness with the compassion. So mindfulness is going to cultivate an awareness, if you like, of your habits and your patterns. It's the act of sitting down in a chair, closing your eyes if it's available to you, and just sort of focusing in on your in-breath and your out-breath and starting to notice what's going on. For me, as personally, when I started mindfulness, I realized that I was absolutely cracking my teeth nearly. I was, very tense in my face, my head, my shoulder. And I'd been told for years, you're grinding your teeth. you must be very stressed out. And I was like, no, I was a doer. I'm just going to get on with this. And I think it was through mindfulness, just the slowing down, the paying attention to my own experience, was when I became aware that I was my thoughts, my behaviors, my patterns, and how it was manifesting in my body. And then sort of the compassion, after you notice all those things, the compassion comes in, because you're like, okay, now what? So you're compassionate with yourself, as you would be with a friend, saying, well, this is really hard. You maybe need to look at this from a different angle. Maybe, the best you did today was X, Y, and Z. Okay, you didn't do the 52 things you said you were going to do, but this is how it is. And I think the actual practice of meditation, of making a relationship with yourself a priority. We're all talking about self-care. And to me, mindful meditation is one of the biggest ways that I look after myself.
Yeah. I quite agree with you on that one, because it is about noticing everything, as you say, noticing our breath, noticing how we're breathing, noticing all that tension. A classic one for me more recently was a client. I don't do that woo-woo stuff. I don't do that. And I said, okay, just humor me for just 5 minutes. And so we just started with that, the breathing. And then we went through the bodies. I do a body scan as well, part of it. And it got to the point where she said to me, I just realized how much pain I have in my jaw.
I can relate to that.
It's the first time, and she'd been carrying this around with her for years.
No, absolutely, yeah.
The more she talked, the more her jaw relaxed. The pain disappeared, because she was getting it out. It was stuck inside her.
Yeah.
And the more she did the mindfulness breathing, the mindfulness practice, etc., the more we talk, the less her jaw aches. And she can start a session with her jaw really hurting. And as we talk, and she tells me more of her story, she said, the pain's going.
No, it is. It absolutely is. It is brilliant, because when I see clients, I'm absolutely conscious of the barriers we put up. I put them up for years. I don't want to be a Buddhist. I'm not looking for spiritual enlightenment. It takes too long. It's boring. I don't want to shut my eyes and sit there doing nothing. I absolutely get all of those things. And it was when I was living in Asia that it kind of all came to a head a little bit. I was like, okay, I can't ignore this anymore. I'm stressed out. I'm tense. I don't sleep properly. I'm cracking my teeth. Hello, my body had shouted at me long enough that it was time to sort of pay attention. And it was just, I had tried meditation with different groups, different teachers, and I needed guidance. I needed to be kind of talked through the steps that I was supposed to be sort of paying attention to, because it was just a case of I sat there and my head, if you can imagine things like flying, and it was just like, I felt worse after I sat down. And then I started to do it for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. And I call it the buy-in. The buy-in for me was, I met this guy and he said to me, look, my mom told me years ago that you may be the only person you have at some points in your life. So if you were going on a journey with somebody for 80 plus years, you'd want to know them. You would want to know what was their habits, what were their patterns, what really hurt them, what made them happy, what were their strengths. If you're in trouble, what strengths do they bring to the table? And at the same time, what are their weaknesses? What can we help them out with? So for me, the actual practice of sitting and meditating and and I call it checking in as well as meditation, is just checking in with how I'm doing. What are my patterns? How am I doing in a day? Began to be very powerful. The signs, the research has shown that after even 8 weeks, it's beginning to help, it's beginning to create, it's beginning to ease and cultivate, different neural pathways. So yeah, so it went from there, and now I teach it to anybody who wants to know. And it's part of my practice, and it's part of my life. So
yeah, as you say, it's very powerful, and so many people don't know themselves. I'm sure you've had many
oh
conversations,
yeah, of course.
as I have with people, and who are you? What do you, what is your drive in your life? What are your core beliefs and values? What makes you the individual that you are in this world? It's different. You might as well ask them, what's the moon made from?
Yeah. Well, we don't listen to ourselves. We listen to everybody else.
Yeah, they never had that conversation with themselves.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we're not taught to.
No, we're not.
You're taught to sort of do what you're told, go to school, and if you feel bad, you're taught to push it away.
Yeah.
You're taught to distract yourself, think of something nice, and this constant distraction. But your body holds it, so you can push it away as much as you like. And then we have all sorts of problems with addictions and disorders, and because you're pushing it away. Whereas I often say to people, it's the story that you're holding. So something hurt you. Okay, it hurt you. If you had sat with it and been with it, this really hurts. This person hurt me, and this is what I'm feeling, as opposed to, no, I'm going to go out. I'm going to distract myself as much as possible. You then carry the story with you into the next situation, and it builds and builds, and then it becomes a habit. It becomes a pattern. It becomes a part of who you are. Whereas, and all of that, has come from the fact that we're not taught to sit and be uncomfortable. We're also, our lexicon, I find that I just did the feelings wheel with somebody, and they were like, but I didn't even know those feelings related to this one. I didn't even know, I don't know how to describe how I feel. They would describe thoughts or beliefs, but they weren't feelings. And I said, no, but what are you actually feeling? And so that was super. I mean, I sort of knew it, but it had been a while since I'd met somebody who was so stuck, because she had come to me and said, I need to help my children. They don't describe their feelings well. And I said to her, well, describe this situation to me and tell me about your feelings. And almost immediately she came up across, a really big barrier. And she said, well, what do I do about this? And I said, well, you recognizing that, we all have gaps, we all have things we have to learn. If you can see it as that, it's just, it's something else you need to learn. I had to learn how to relate to myself.
Yeah. We don't. I think there's something else around that I'd like to kind of just say. We learn from our parents, either modeling it or they teach us. So we learn how to walk and talk. That is, show herself. I mean, we're encouraged in all those things. But feelings we're given that name to a feeling by those around us. You fall over and hurt yourself, you will be given, and you cry. Oh, are you sad? Are you hurt? Are you annoyed? And that word will attach, and then you automatically think that is what our word is, that describes a feeling. But often you will get from that caregiver, or don't make such a fuss, just get up and get on with it. And therefore, if you're not even given a word to describe what you're feeling so that you have a sense of it, you don't know. You're not even...
No, you're not exactly. And then you're prescribed feelings too. If you're a boy or a girl, you're not sad, you're angry.
Yeah.
So we're prescribed all these things. I think in mindfulness, one of the interesting things is we talk about suffering is part of life. Suffering can be physical pain, it can be emotional pain. So you're going to suffer. Your child, as much as we don't like it, is going to suffer. So do we teach them to ignore it, or do we give them a toolkit to learn how to deal with it? And I think the best thing you can do is give them a toolkit to learn how to deal with it. and not ignore it. But the two arrows that you talk about in mindfulness is, the first thing, the simplest example is you stub your toe on a table and it really hurts the nail, your toe's bleeding, and you're like, oh my goodness. And immediately you start the story. I told my son the other day to move the table. And he didn't move the table because he doesn't listen to me, because now he's a teenager. He doesn't. You've created a story. You've created two arrows. You created, the first arrow of suffering was the actual suffering, you banged your toe. The second arrow was the story you're now creating to have a go at your son, create something because you banged your toe. So I think if we can teach these things, these very basic things to people, and ideally to children, it's immensely empowering. I felt it immensely empowering to be able to sit with my own suffering, to be able to get perspective of my own suffering. And then when you really get into the practices in mindfulness and compassion, there is a thing called sort of backdraft, where when I had realized the lack of compassion I was showing myself, the sort of very harsh self-talk and judgment, I did go through probably a couple of weeks of grieving for this, what I'd done to myself, if you like. And I think, but that's where the compassion comes in. That's where trusting kind of a practice comes in. You can handle it. You'll get through it. And I think oftentimes people don't have that. Luckily, by that stage, I was very much feeling that I was much less reactive. I wasn't just reacting to myself. I wasn't just reacting to situations. I was able to respond. I was able to pause and respond, and able to say to people at times, I don't know how I feel about this. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Whereas my instinct always was to, be on the ball, keep going, look after myself, don't ask for help, But I think that had to change. It obviously wasn't working. Yeah. So I think it is. I think teaching people, and you learn the practice of just sitting and listening to yourself in a nice, in a kind way, in a curious, in a curious, non-judgmental way. Sounds so easy, and it's hard.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I won't sugarcoat it. It's hard. And sometimes, it is just the practice of doing it even when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's like anything, I suppose. You want to be a really good basketball player, you go out there and you practice hours a day. Luckily, meditation doesn't need hours a day, 10 or 15 minutes. There are people who say they do it for hours and hours a day, but it's never something that I've done or needed to do.
What's coming up for me when you were saying staying with our feelings, I think there is, for me, I think one of the biggest things that I recognized at that point, because I think I don't have one light bulb moment, I have lots of little flickers that go off. But one was acknowledging that having negative feelings about something was okay as well as the positives. Mm-hmm. I often use the example of, okay, I've got this event planned, I'm really looking forward to going with this friend to do this thing. And the last minute she says, I'm sick, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. And we are taught not to feel that annoyance, anger, upset, whatever it is, that event has been, you can't go. We are told to be selfless and only empathize with the other person. Mm. So yeah, I'm really sorry, she's ill, she can't make it. And that's awful. But we don't allow, we're not allowed, society doesn't allow us. We don't allow ourselves to say, that's really rubbish. And I was upset that
absolutely.
And that's where some of that compassion comes in for me. And say, you know what? And I will say it now to a friend, if something like that happened, I'd say, I'm so disappointed that we can't. Because that's my truth.
Yeah, and it's valuing, and it's valuing your own experience.
Yeah, and I hope you feel better, but I'm so disappointed that we can't do that, because that
absolutely,
it's really owning it, and I think that is part of the compassion. I think
It also removes the story. So it removes this we are overpowered by negative emotions. You know, even when we're doing the wheel with this person, she was like, well, there's only, I don't know, 8 or something or 10 positive emotions. And I said, okay. I mean, I didn't say anything because that's a valid, I felt like I was judging her if I sort of called her out on it. But when I took it, when I sat with it and thought about it, I thought, we expect that. We expect, you know, we're taught, well, find the positive all the time. Everything's positive all the time. And it isn't positive all the time. But that's what I think I've learned through 20 years of studying and all sorts of other things. But a lot of meditation, just that the experience of the day, your emotions are transient. Your thoughts are not facts. I can be very into one thing, like this is a disaster, at 9:10, and by 9:30, if I've just sort of sat with it for a minute and it's gone. My brain has managed to sort of put it somewhere else and had a little bit more perspective. But if I add a big story to it, and you know, all of our habits and all of our patterns, it became for me overpowering. It became for me something that I couldn't manage in a day. You know, my body was just super tense and my heart rate was always high. And I think it is, you know, the power of being aware of what you're doing, because once you're aware of something, you can't ignore it anymore. You can try.
And I think acknowledging our shadow side is another side of it, I think. Doesn't it? I can remember I really I was a people pleaser and didn't want to be myself, couldn't be myself because I didn't know who I was, because I was trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be. And so to have that being me, warts and all, was really scary.
Oh, absolutely.
I had lunch with friends and I said, you know, it's great that you accept me and that, you know, that I can be a bitch too and you're still sitting here with me. And we all burst out laughing, but it was, on occasions I can be a complete bitch.
Of course, yeah.
But that means I'm owning that part of me. And it's something really satisfying. I don't know, there's something really nice about the fact that you know that they know you can do that and you can say it out loud. You go, yeah, you can, and that's fine.
I think there's a phrase people use that I used to also use before I sort of internalized it, but it's standing in your own truth. When you can do that, you're okay if you're the only one who sees it. If you're the only one who's like, no, this is right for me, I'm gonna do it. And I understand, you know, people will often say to me, yeah, but my husband and my mother and my kids and my job and I understand all of those things, but having an authenticity with yourself is an immense gift to give yourself and the people that you love, because they get the real you.
Yeah.
They get the real deal. Yes, you're going to be a bitch sometimes. Yes, you're going to be this, that, and the other, or whatever it is for you. Or you're going to be very vulnerable sometimes, or you're going to be very over emotional sometimes. I get very over emotional about my children. I really have to implement all my skills and practices when it comes to my own children. But I know that about myself. I know that's my vulnerability. I know that's also my biggest strength, is sort of the amount of compassion, the amount of love I have for people is just what it is, and I accept it. And some days it runs away with me and some days it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that is it is like, it's lovely to be able to feel all of that, accept it, acknowledge it, own it. And be compassionate with ourselves. Yeah,
it's hard. I mean,
I've really enjoyed talking to you today about this.
It's been lovely. Thank you.
I'm going to ask, what is the one thing that people could take away with themselves that they maybe put into action right this minute, or something they could do that?
Okay. I suppose I would say the one thing, if you could practice today, is being as nice to yourself as you would be to your best friend or somebody very close to you. So whatever happens for you today, try not to do our usual, massive self-criticism and harsh words. Just try, even a little bit, one sentence, to talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend.
Oh, I think that's just lovely. Really like that, Sarah. So, how can people get in touch with you? One simple way that listeners can get in touch with you, and because obviously, if they go on the website and see the show notes, or if they go on hearing on Spotify, all the details are in there.
Mm-hmm.
One way that people can find you easily.
I mean, easily, I suppose, is just the Daily Meditation Lab, Sara Copley, or Sara Copley, the Daily Meditation Lab. There are other websites out there that use similar words, but oftentimes the Daily Meditation Lab with Sara Copley, you'll find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed it. I hope the listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you
I
so
hope so too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed today's show and my guest. If you'd like to learn more about my guest or about me, then go to my website, wendycapewell.co.uk. So until next time, have a great week. Bye.